So, hello everyone. I'm David Jays and I edit Dance Gazette, the magazine of the Royal Academy of Dance. We've known for a long time about the issues around race and ballet, what we might call #ballet so white. But this tumultuous year, where the coronavirus pandemic enforced a hiatus in the way we work, and then the murder of George Floyd ignited the reach and focus of the Black Lives Matter movement, this year seems to offer an opportunity to reflect, to rethink, maybe even to reset how ballet operates, so that we can create something better on the other side. Theresa, how do individuals and organizations make meaningful change? How do you kind of get them to not either avoid that conversation entirely because it's just too huge, or wait for society to catch up?
I think you're right. I think that the overall culture with a big C has to change before the cultures with the small c change. But so I say I don't shift organizations, I shift people, because we have evidence that you can put laws on the books and it doesn't mean that people actually apply the law or apply the law the way that it was meant to be applied. It's actually the people, right? So yeah, that is true. But I would argue that it's actually, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. It's actually not as hard as we like to make it, right? Because if organizations are people, then there are people who are making the decisions. So people just have to choose differently. And I sit in these rooms where everybody's like, ooh, pondering, what do we do? Oh my gosh, And I go, well, you could just look at the model of Dance Theatre of Harlem that Arthur Mitchell built for you, because it actually took ballet and made it accessible. It's built on the model that we now call outreach, right? And saying that like anybody can come. It's actually, the training is actually affordable. And as Mr. Mitchell would say, and Chyrstyn, you'll laugh, if you can hit the high C, then you can hit the high C, right? But we don't look at an organization like Dance Theatre of Harlem, primarily because it is a Black organization, and somehow whiteness doesn't think that it can find the answers to these very difficult problems, in spaces of Blackness, and that's really just the truth. Because it's Arthur Mitchell encouraged everyone, included everyone. It didn't matter where you were from. The organization almost immediately was multicultural, but under the umbrella of Blackness. But there were white people in the school and the company almost immediately. So it's about what your philosophy and your core values and your mission are.
Now that I'm teaching, I'm very aware that a lot of businesses, schools, and that are looking at statistics. And it made me reflect and think back on, would I want to be a statistic to make the school look good, or would I want to be in the Royal Ballet School because I was good at ballet? Do you know what I mean? So there's that balance of, I think institutions have to be very clever. They have to get out and they have to find the talent. They've got to nurture the talent.
I have to look at it from like the dancer's perspective, because that's where I'm most involved right now. And I haven't stepped further than that quite yet. I think that it's important for every company, especially if they carry the name of a city that they're representing, for them to represent the community that they're performing for, and for the audiences that they're performing for. So there's like a couple of different ways that I can take this conversation. It's like creating a space that makes the audience feel safe walking into the doors to watch this theater, and having something that they can see themselves in whatever way that person is. So like having a more diverse stage, or like diversifying the roster of a company. And how do we diversify the roster of a company? We have to like start from the very beginning. And it's going to take a long time. We have to like plant the seeds. We have to get the younger people to be interested, tell their friends that they're also welcome in this house, and then to grow those people all the way up through the company. And then you can have like your own homegrown dancers that relate to the city that you're trying to perform for. And that's just like something that I think that a lot in these conversations that people are having, like, well, why aren't we solving the problem? Why aren't we solving the problem? Or like, how do we diversify our roster? How do we get more dancers of color? How do we do this? It's and there's like not a level of patience or understanding that these things are going to take time. You can't snap your fingers and poof, you have a more diverse stage. But you have to start from the beginning and be willing to put into work to like water these seeds and like watch them grow.
Here's what I find interesting. When I first started this work, one of the things that I noticed is that, Chyrstyn, to go back to the idea of like, we have to start at the beginning. Like, it's about the pipeline, because we have to have more brown and black dancers in the pipeline to make it to the end, that make it to the stage, that after the stage become the teachers, choreographers, hopefully artistic directors, whatever. But what I found was that ballet organizations were conflating their outreach programs with their diversity initiatives, right? And so your outreach program is generally something that's happening in a non-dance context, right? In a cafeteria, a gym, a school, you know, a rec center. It's sparse training. It's not really how you make a dancer. You hope that they will matriculate into the actual program, right? And so I'm like, these people, these children look like the people that you want to, you know, populate your pipeline with. But the reality of it is that the majority of dancers come from working in middle-class backgrounds. White, black, whatever. They come from working in middle-class backgrounds. The minute that I will use this term, ghettoize this initiative, and you look only at people who are in economic crisis, right? You're not going to be successful, because it's a middle-class structure. And you need certain things. You have to have the ability to cart kids back and forth to school, right? So there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility in a support system that oftentimes people who are economically disadvantaged just don't have. So unless you're wanting to, you know, partner with Uber to cart people back and forth, or create some sort of, you know what I mean? It's unsustainable. And so why are we not looking? And it leans into the stereotype that all Black people are poor, when in fact there is a middle class, there's a working middle class and an upper class. But yet we're not looking at those families to say, hey, instead of playing field hockey or soccer, come take a ballet class. And so that is an implicit bias that feeds into this idea that somehow Black people they're not sophisticated enough to love the arts. When in fact, in the States, in 1926, E.B. Du Bois, there was a whole movement of using art and culture as a way of bringing the community together. So it's all these like this fallacy about Blackness, mythology about Blackness, that actually, no, we have been in opera, we've been in classical theater, we haven't been in the mainstream because we weren't allowed to, but we created our own spaces to do it. And so it's just open the doors. How about that? that would be a start, right? Just open the doors and authentically welcome people.
So I wondered, for each of you, if we could just end by asking about your hopes for the next generation of dancers. And Chyrstyn, in 10 years, for a young Black ballerina entering the profession, how do you hope things might be different for her?
If I could change something about like what I've had to live in, I hope that future Black ballerinas won't have that internal dialogue that I mentioned earlier. They won't have to have that internal dialogue. They won't have those pressures of feeling like they have to present themselves in a certain way outside of just being a successful dancer. I hope that they walk into a room and they see themselves on a same playing field as other people, and not being like, oh, well, I'm always going to be seen in this light and I have to work extra hard to get to the same possibilities as other people. And I hope like for their for their mental health, I think that's like more what I'm thinking about is that they don't have to have that added weight of just, they can walk into a room and be another dancer in a room rather than walk into the room and be like a Black dancer in a room, if that makes sense. Although being Black is great. Nothing wrong with it.
I hope that ballet can actually tap in to its original like avant-garde roots, right? Where it's like breaking boundaries and it's like, oh my God, the shame and like, I like that it becomes courageous, right? And it can interrogate itself and challenge itself to really once again be, you know, a change agent. And if that means by looking like the world, you know, and telling, you know, all the different stories that the world has to offer, then that is my hope, that becomes normalized, that it will look strange when a curtain goes up and it's all like white. You know, you go like, huh, that's odd. Like I feel a certain way about it. You know, that our eyes start to shift so that the things that were the norm are now, you know, oddities.
I just want to feel a lot more about the encouragement, growing healthy young people. Not necessarily that are going to be dancers, but just growing healthy young people that just see each other as more people, you know? Openness, love, yeah.
Begin with. So thank you, Theresa, Chyrstyn and Joshua. Thank you so much for your time, for your reflections today. You're so generous. Thank you anyone who's been watching. There'll be a version of this conversation in the October issue of Dance Gazette. There will be a lot more to say about all of this in future. But for now, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and goodbye.